All right, let's start adding tasks. So the next step is we need to add tasks through our Add Tasks view screen. So we need to set up the view to let the user accomplish that. So what we're going to let the user do is put in a name for the task, and then they can choose to cancel out, which will just back them back to the last screen. And of course, they could use the back button to do that too. Then when they click the Add Task button, it will add a task to our shared list of tasks in the application, and then canceling will simply return the view screen, like I said earlier. So basically what we need to do is set up an input text type of a field, and then two buttons on that Add Task screen that we already set up. And then we need to add a click listener for Add Task, and we need to set up the edit text to have an ID so that we can get reference to it and grab the text to get the name for the task. So let's do all of that right now. And that will take place, close some files here, inside of our view layout add tasks, which is right now just a simple linear layout with a vertical orientation. This is all stuff that we've kind of seen before. There's not too much that's different here, except you're going to run into a new component you haven't seen, but I'm going to copy and paste that in just to save typing again. So we have a text view, which is the title at the top, and that is going to reference that same string that we had on the button, which is add task. That will be the title on the screen. And then there's an edit text, which is a new component, which is a text area that a user can type into. And that needs to have an ID, and it does, we'll call that task name. And then there's an add button and a cancel button. And I think that we will need to, once I save, we'll see all of the errors, and I think that this will be the only one. We need to create a string for that cancel button. So I'm going to open up the string file with my open resource shortcut and duplicate this line because it's about the same amount of writing, and add a cancel string. So now if I close that strings file and come back to add tasks, then there should be no errors there, and this view should be ready to go. So the next step is to go over to the activity that controls this view, and that is the add tasks activity view, or I'm sorry, add task activity. And we need to do the same sort of song and dance here. We need to set up views. I'm going to create that private little helper method to sort of consolidate all that view setup code. Add task activity. I'm going to copy in some of that stuff to save some typing again. So I want to get reference to 3 different things on that view that we can use in code. I want that to be the edit text, of course, and then the 2 buttons. So I need to import those guys. Import button, task name, add button, cancel button. And then I will set these up as fields. Task name edit text, an edit text component, and the add button and the cancel button, which are buttons. Okay. You'll notice that Eclipse 2, if anybody's wondering what this yellow underline means, red underlines mean a problem, and yellow underlines mean a warning. This all comes from compiling the Java code. In this case, it's saying, hey, you're writing to this variable, but you're never reading it, so that's probably not a variable that you need. Are you sure you want to keep it around? And in our case, we do. It's just that during the code creation, we'll have that show up sometimes. Okay, we've seen lots of view listeners, or click listeners, sorry. So hopefully you don't mind me pasting a little bit more code and not really going over it too much. But we need a on-click listener for both the add button and the cancel button. So I'm going to copy those guys in here, and then I'm going to call a method called add task in the case of the add button, and cancel in the case of the cancel button. Oops, one problem here. So another thing that needs to be the case. So when I hover over here, can everybody read this? So the text in this this pop-up says the method cancel is undefined for the type new view on click listener. There are 2 quick fixes available. You can create a method cancel, or you can create a protected method cancel and type add task activity. And of course, we need to do that if we're to share resources, because again, we are inside of an anonymous class here. So I'm going to quick add these guys, and I'm going to move these up, cut this code just for a little housekeeping here. I think these are a little more important than set up views, so I'm going to have these at the top. So given that somehow we want to add tasks or cancel, these methods will be called, and we can do some work inside of there. Okay. For now, I think that what we want to do is, let's do cancel first. So does anybody have any idea what we would do in the case of a cancel? We could do something pretty simple here for now. What would we do if we wanted to cancel out of adding this task?
So we would just end the view to add the task?
Yeah, we can just do that by using the finish method like we used last time to go from the green flashlight activity to the red flashlight activity. So that will just finish this this activity. And now add task, what we want to do is actually add a task. So to do that, we need to do a few things. First of all, we need to get the text that the user typed in. I'm going to set up a local variable here which references this task name edit text component, and then to get the text out of there we have to say get text, which ends up being an instance of editable, and then calling toString on that will give us the actual string that the user typed in. So now I have the string typed in that they want for their name. The next thing I need to do is to create a task using that string. And by the way, I could abstract all this into the. It'd probably be better to put this inside the application, but I wanted to be very explicit about what's going on here. So I have everything set up right here. Hovering over this task, I need to import that, and now I have a new task. Now I want to do something that we will come back to later, and there's a reason I'm going to do this, and I'll explain it to you as I paste it in. So I need to get a reference to the application that this activity is running under, and you can see how I can do that in a generic sense in a little bit. But I want to do this specifically to get our task manager application, because that's the one that has add task on it. So I'm going to create a little helper method here, create method, get task manager application, and the object, I'm going to change that generated code to return a task manager application instead of an object. And the way I'm going to do that is like this: task manager application equals get application. So here is a helper method on activity called get application. What is it? Oh, okay, that's the problem, right? So there's a helper method on every activity. This is of type activity called get application, which will get the application that the activity is running under. And that will return, obviously, a type of android.app.application instead, so I need to cast this to what we want, because we know that's what it's going to be, and return that guy. So get application is on every activity, returns the major, or returns the activity the application that the activity is running under. We have our own application, so we're going to return that one instead, and then we'll come back to this helper method in a little bit and push it up one level. so that other activities can use it too. But for now, we're just going to get this, get a reference to the application and add a task through there. And then once that work is done, that's good enough for us, for our work so far, and we can finish as well.
So Tony, just to sum up what you just said, basically you're saying that we want to call the add task method on the application in order to actually add the task.
Yep, because all the tasks are shared across the application at the activity. At the application level, and so we need to add the tasks through that interface that we've created for ourselves.
And then the view task activity will have access to that through the same method,
Yep.
through the same way. Okay.
I'm going to do that next, actually, because what we need to do now that we've added a task to prove that to ourselves and to make the application work right, we need to actually get the tasks displayed on the view tasks activity.
Hey, Tony, I just want to interrupt. I have a quick question here from the chat room. Would it be more efficient to have the buttons use the activity as the click listener, having the activity implement on-click listener and use, say, a switch in the on-click method, or to do it the way you have done it?
That's up to you. I don't like... Okay, so what they're asking is basically... we can set up our activity as an on-click listener and then listen for all clicks of all buttons and then decide which button was clicked. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I just don't like doing that conditional code. It seems messy to me. But so, I mean, in terms of typing, it may actually be a little less typing. I like to set up anonymous click listeners. That's just my preference. I don't know if there's really any efficiency gains either in the code or in the typing side of things. I think it's cleaner code for my tastes. So that's kind of a matter of taste thing that you'll have to sort out on your team if you work there, or do things whichever way you want. If you want, hey, could you do me a favor, whoever asked that question, and start up a topic on the forums about this so that we can talk about it a little bit more, because that'd be something useful to talk about. Okay, so now back to the view tasks activity. Now that we have something in our task list, what we want to do is show those tasks on the view. So I'm going to paste in a method that will do that right here, and that is called show tasks. So basically the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to do all the work here, and this may seem kind of messy to some people, but don't worry, we're going to move this out in later episodes. But basically I'm going to get all the tasks that we have in the application, import these guys, and then loop over them, and just create a little string buffer here, and then push their names, which we can get through toString, into the string buffer. And then hopefully everybody understands this Java incantation here. This is just going to create a bulleted list with a string followed by a new line, and then the string will be the tasks toString, and that will be appended into the string buffer. And then once we have all the tasks in there, we can set the text of the task text view to be the contents of that string buffer. So you can see here that in my pasted code, I expect to use a method called getTaskManagerApplication. And you may recognize that if I switch back to add task activity to be just this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a little Eclipse trick which helps refactoring these type of things, because now we want, just as all Android activities, all Android activities have a getApplication method, we want the activities for our application to have a getTaskManagerApplication method so that they can get that in the same way and get the class that they expect instead of the generic getApplication. So what I'm going to do is cut this code. Actually, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to show you how Eclipse will do it. So, I'm back here in add task activity, and what I'm going to do is hover over this method, and I'm going to go to the refactor But what I want to do is pull up this method to a superclass. So what's going to happen is I'm going to create another class that's a superclass of this activity, add task activity, and we'll call it task manager activity. And then I will go to view task activity and make it extend that same class. And to help me do that, I'm going to go through this process that Eclipse will allow us to do, which makes this all kind of easy. I'm going to pull this method up to a superclass. Pulp is not available in this type. All super types are binary. Okay, so first I need to actually create the activity. So I'm going to come here to this task manager package and say new class task manager activity. So this is going to be a generic activity that I can subclass and get access to some shared code. And this is going to extend activity. I'm going to finish that, and it will create the activity and show me the code. And this is going to be a simple guy. I thought that Eclipse did this part for me. I think that it may in a different context, but not in this. Apparently I didn't do it correctly. But given the fact that if view task activity, instead of extending activity, extends task manager activity, and add task activity extends task manager activity, then I can go back to view task activity and try this again. Oops, I'm sorry, add task activity, and try this again. Come here to the refactor menu and go to pull up. Now it will give me this dialog where I can choose to pull this method up into a superclass, and the destination type will be here, O'Reilly Android Task Manager activity. Finish. And now Eclipse has helped me refactor that. So now get task manager activity, application. This method will still work inside add task activity, but inside view tasks activity, I can now also call it and it will work. So I just did a little bit of refactoring there to give us a common superclass with a task manager application notion of the application instead of just using get application. Any questions about that?
Yeah, we had a few questions, so I just wanted to kind of summarize and see if I got it right, and then if I got it wrong, you can correct me. So basically, we need to be able to add a task, and we need to have access to the application to add the task so that it's available to all of the activities. So you wrote a little helper method, but rather than have the helper method repeated in both activities, you pulled it up into a new superclass of activities called task manager activity so that all of the activities would have access to that helper method.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so in this sort of view of things that we had, we've got the two different activities here, the view and the add, and then there was an application above them. Now we've inserted a activity that's a common ancestor of both of those activities, and that knows how to access the application so that each activity can share that code. And that's just a little bit of a time saver. I kind of went through that exercise so that I could show you Eclipse refactoring. Sorry, I forgot that I needed to take one step before the other, but that's how the refactoring works, and that's probably useful to you at some time in the future. So now, by the way, we can clean this up because we no longer have to import activity, so that's why this little yellow squiggly is there in add task activity and in view task activity. I can get rid of that code there. Now we should have a situation here where in view task activity we can call this method show tasks, and it will get a list of all the tasks that the task manager application knows about and get all that text together to show. But what's the right time to call that? When we're coming back to this view from the add task activity, we're going to need to refresh that. And so just as what's called an activity lifecycle method of onCreate is called when an activity is first created, there's another lifecycle method that I'm going to introduce you to right now called on resume, and I've just pasted in some code. The name of the method is on resume. It comes from activity, and it will be called whenever an activity comes into view again, and it will also be called during the create lifecycle. So when the first time an activity comes into view, first the on create will be called, and then later on resume will be called, and then after that, every time the activity's view is shown again, or the activity comes to the forefront, on resume will be called every time. So every time on resume is called, we're going to call show tasks, and it will go show all the tasks that are so far held in memory inside the application. So I'm going to run that, and we should see everything working as expected. No sneaky errors like I had last time to show you about the manifest. Let's see, so if I click add tasks, and I could come here and say get milk, add that task, and now it should show up inside the task manager. So I think that covers it for this step. Any more questions about that one in particular?
Somebody asked about the persistence of tasks across the app, and we are going to get to that in a later session when you cover databases, right?
Yep. So right now, the task list is stored in memory. If you move to another application, your task manager application will probably still be running, unless you run into a low memory situation, or if you go. So in that case, the task list will stay around. But if you reboot your phone or you kill the application, the task manager application, those will be gone. So that's not the most useful thing possible, but there's a couple different ways that you can save those tasks locally, and we will look at that in the near future and in a later module.